Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Judith Carrera, and I'm the CCCB director. And I want to welcome you all very warmly to this first keynote lecture of the ICEA Symposium, the most inspiring and worldwide event at the crossroads of art, science, and technology. Estimat Joan Fontcuberta, Jorge Luis Marzo, gràcies per acompanyar-nos. És un honor rebre-us de nou al CCCB. It's a great honor for the CCCB to be the main venue of ICEA this week, together with all the other locations, and to become a space for conversation, experimentation, and exchange on the urgent need to imagine and create some possible futures in a context of climate emergency, war, and unprecedented technological change, where the future seems dark and uncertain. And despite these uncertainties, here we are, a large community of artists, scientists, educators, and cultural and technological practitioners to confirm once again that art and culture have not only the power to articulate and give meaning to the world, but they also have the immense capacity to anticipate the future and to invent new ways of thinking and living. The CCCB is a multidisciplinary space to promote critical thinking on the key issues of contemporary society through a wide range of formats and cultural languages. It is a space grounded on the humanities, well aware of the central role science and technology can play in the very definition of the human condition today. It is on this basis that a few years ago we created the CCCB Lab, an online site to promote debate on the impact, challenges, and possibilities of the technological change. We, after that, opened up the beta series of exhibitions at the crossroads between art, science, and technology, which have included shows on big data, the posthumanities, climate change, quantum physics, or the planet of Mars, and the exhibition on brains that we will open at the end of July in a co-production with the Wellcome Collection in London and the Fundación Telefónica in Madrid. To reinforce these connections and the multiple ecosystems to which we belong, we have also recently created a mediation program which works very closely with a dense network of artists, activists, designers, academics, collectives, scientists, and technological experts. Within this program, we're also proud to have invented new bridges between high schools and other educational communities with some of the most important scientific and research centers in town. These three tools, the CCCB Lab, the beta series of exhibitions, and our new mediation program are part of the aim of the CCCB to be an open public space, a bridge between disciplines, publics, and communities, and a space of imagination and experimentation. This has been possible thanks to the collaboration with institutions from around the world and with the most relevant scientific centers in town, such as the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, the Photonics Institute, the Institute for Fundamental Physics, the Institute for Spatial Studies of Barcelona, and the Barcelona Institute of Global Health, for instance. In an interdependent world, we cannot work alone. We need this collective intelligence to be able to read the complexity of our world and to respond to the challenges at stake. And here, again, we are delighted to open up our conversation with the ICEA international community. And I want to thank Pau Alsina and all the team at the WOC and also the ICEA team to give us this opportunity. I am immensely proud today to welcome Joan Fontcuberta, which is a dear and admired artist whose work is articulated around the power and the ambivalences of images and photography, and has been recently critically assessing the role of artificial intelligence in this. Joan, who is also collaborating with our exhibition on brains, is one of the most important and inspiring Catalan artists. He received the Hasselblad Prize in 2013, has recently been awarded an honoris causa recognition by the University in Paris, WIT, and recently curated a wonderful exhibition at the Vila Casas Foundation here in Barcelona. Joan will be introduced and presented by Jorge Luis Marzo, a renowned curator and professor from Barcelona who has published a wonderful book, Las Videntes, Images on the Age of the Prediction, and has also recently opened a beautiful exhibition on artificial intelligence. To them, thank you very much for being here with us, and I'll now give the floor to Pau Alsina, the director of the program. Thank you.
Thanks, Judith, and thanks so much CCCB for hosting us and for letting us be here and be in this wonderful place, one of the best places here in Barcelona. This is great, and we just wanted just to say a couple of words, just to thank you all of you for being here after more than 3 years since last time that we met I think it was in Korea. That was a long ago because Montreal was not able to do it presentially. So thanks a lot. We are with Irma Vila and Susana Tesconi in representation of the whole organization team of the Open University of Catalonia and all the other chairs that are here. Here, I can see some of them. So thanks a lot. I would just I just remember you that we will publish the proceedings and also a catalog right after the conference ends. And also, I have to remind you that there is also these Art Notes special journals, the special issues of that journal that we want to publish 3 special issues that you still have time to send your papers. Remember, I will send a reminder if you want to publish your paper, because this is going to be an open access publication. The next 3 ones will be focused on this ICEA. So I will just land the mic to Ernst Edmond from ICEA, Director of ICEA. Yes.
Thank you very much. So yes, I'm Ernest Edmonds, and for the last few years I've been chairing the board of ICEA International. And I'm very thrilled that at last we are back meeting physically, and what a wonderful place to meet in Barcelona. And thank you so much for hosting ICEA this year in Barcelona. It's a great privilege for us to be here. I want to just make one announcement. Many of you will know of ICEA through Sue Gollifer from Brighton University in the UK, who has been the face of ICEA for many, many years. Sue is retiring from this role. So she's not here today for various reasons. She can't be with us, but we would like to thank her for the many, many years of great work she's done to bring our community together. Beside me is Jeremiah Ambrose, who's from the University of Creative Arts in the UK, who's taking over the role. So I also want to wish him all the best in making the future of ICEA work well in the spirit that Sue has done in the past. Jeremiah.
Thanks, Ernest. I'm Jeremiah Ambrose from the University of Creative Arts. Just want to say very briefly, I'm really, really excited about the opportunity of this partnership. And I think there's quite a degree of synchronicity with the theme of this symposium being possibles. And I'm really, really excited about the future of ICEA International. And I hope that you can make the future of ICEA International on this afternoon, basically just talking about possibilities and future iterations as well. So that's in the program. Take a look. You can do the questionnaire online and join us in person. And I think finally, I'd just like to thank ICEA Barcelona. And again, just Sue Gollifer, if we can give her a round of applause again, please. Thank you.
Okay, so now is your time, Jorge and Joan.
Hello. So, hello everyone. Thanks for coming. So, good morning to you all. It is always a pleasure to introduce Joan Fontcuberta, friend and fellow traveler in some adventures. As an artist and essayist, Joan has been, for many of us, interested in life or afterlife of images, a generous source of ideas, challenges, and explorations in a visual era which he himself has contributed to define through his studies and art practices on so-called post-photography. It is not surprising then that it is Joan who opens the keynote session at this ICEA 2022 at a time when images seem to escape the anthropocentric domain and constitute an interfacial language among the devices that were once created to describe the world. Images are now created by machines, to be read by other machines. At first glance, one might think that this is a system of automated seers with a will to autonomy. However, we can also perceive how this system reflects with great precision and in a singular way the heritage of our human and biased construction of reality. It is a matter, therefore, of observing the phenomenon with the illusion of a revolution on the horizon, but also with the feeling of a general revision of the notions of creativity with which it is nourished. Fontcuberta's thinking in his different approaches to the status of the contemporary image is here, among other lines, to the ideas of Aby Warburg. Warburg defended a science of images based on the understanding that they have life and that it manifested itself in a non-linear way through latencies, emergencies, survivals, and swirls. He spoke of a science capable of creating an anthropology of images, of exploring the biography of images as if they were autonomous beings that mirror the human psyche. Fontcuberta speaks, for his part, of exploring the metabolism of images when they live in full interconnection with machines and increasingly mechanized human eyes. The results of his efforts to analyze the paths that connect photography and post-photography, the latter understood under conditions of technification, automation, and massification, can be seen in the works he will show us now, some of them linked to the use of generative networks capable of showing or deconstructing certain spaces and times of visual and cultural latencies. I would just like to add that it is not by chance, knowing Joan's work and thoughts, that he talks about monsters in the title of his lecture. All of his work has always been linked to the estrangement of things from their commonplaces, to displace the senses of their naturalness and place them under the ghostly light of the unheimlich, of the glitch and the gap. As in Warburg, Fontcuberta's monsters are images that move outside an established temporality, images in constant mutation, capable of describing the world when you least expect it. So, Joan, whenever you want, I think you have 40 minutes or something like that, and then we will have like 10 minutes, 15 minutes for Q&A. Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Thanks, Jorge, for such an accurate presentation. I should just shut up and let my pictures illustrate what you said and prove that you were more or less right. But first of that, I would like to say that I'm in debt to ICEA for inviting me here. I'm not actually a so-called electronic artist, but of course technology and electronics influence all us, and especially my work dealing with visual culture is deeply affected by that. No? So thanks, Pawalsina, for letting me be here and talk before you, shoot some ideas, and show some images. The subject of possibles is particularly close to my concerns. And I would take the meaning of the possible in two different aspects. First, the possible as something possible which exists but would be different. And in such a way, the possible would be the opposite of the certain. I like to deal with uncertainty because one of my main concerns, the heart of my work, is dealing with truth, with memory, with identity, which have been the main concepts in which the ideological structure of photographic culture has been posed. The second thing is that the possible deals with speculation. And I feel that speculation is something inherent to thinking and to creativity. Only by speculation we can go forward. Actually, I prepared a visual itinerary to try to illustrate these concepts. But since we are more or less in an academic context, let me read just a short statement. Don't be frightened, it will be short. And then I will just improvise at the projection that I will be doing. Without realizing it, we have become addicted to images. Photography is no longer candy to become hard drugs. Between anesthesia and stimulation, photography's effect generate states of spirit that model the ways to view the world and, more important, the values to judge it. Today, we all produce and consume photos. We belong so to the order of the Homo photographicus, a species of the evolutionary scale not studied yet. I propose in a humble way that we should start attempting to study it. And to do so, I will propose a series of reflections on the migration of roles that photography has been playing, how we use it, and how it affects our lives. I'm interested, of course, to the contribution of photography to contemporary visual culture, but mainly I intend to focus on the changing latencies, this is tracks, trails, prints, with which photography today marks human experience from a threefold psychological, social, and political perspective. Looking back, photography was one of the pillars of the Industrial Revolution and the techno-scientific culture of the 19th century. And its invention is one of the cluster of innovations that fostered the dramatic expansion of modern transportation and communication systems, the railway, the steamship, and the telegraph. From an economic and political perspective, photography contributed to the control of the world by means of its symbolic appropriation. Photography proved that image control is equivalent to world control. From a social and cultural perspective, the camera acted as an instrument of benediction and of archiving, facilitating the encyclopedifying of knowledge. And third, from a spiritual or religious perspective, photography transcended finitude and death and aspired to magically supplant reality. With photography, the image begins to circulate and democratize, fleeing from the abduction of those elites who use it to demonstrate their power. The camera recorded the chronicle of outstanding events, but also recorded humble, personal, and collective biographies. Photography compromised all us with identity, memory, and certainty. But looking ahead, what happens in the 21st century? What remains of the photograph as a fragment and a corpse, as an act of curiosity and archive? What's left in the age of post-truth and selfies? In the era of the unscrewed Facebook and Instagram windows, emojis and spam, are we now faced with fierce globalization and crypto economies, presentism and hypermodernity, virtual reality and artificial intelligence, quantum computing and multiverse? the capitalism of goods have been engulfed by the capitalism of images. The internet, social networks, mobile phones, and surveillance cameras lead to an oversaturation of images that no longer act as submissive mediations between the world and us, but become parallel scenarios where much of our activity is deployed. It's in this landscape that photography fades as we have known it, and it breaks post-photography. Photography has been a live and dynamic medium that has been fluently adapted to the needs of each time. But the sudden intrusion of post-photography has caught us unprepared. We suffer from a loss syndrome that is hopefully balanced with the conquest of new venture. The title I wished to propose as Jorge advanced is The Monsters. I don't refer to biological monsters. I would refer monsters in a more interesting etymological sense. But somehow the sentence or the quote which releases my reflection here is was proposed by Antonio Gramsci when he was in prison during the fascist Mussolinian regime. And it reads like that: the old world is dying, the new one is slow to appear, and monsters are born in this chiaroscuro. What's the meaning of that and how we can apply it to our visual arts scenario? The old world, this is photography as a promise of truth and memory, is dying. And the new world, images created by artificial intelligence and algorithms, is struggling to emerge. From documents to speculation, from natural images to fake ones, my work proposes precisely to track those chiaroscuros, highlighting the emerging monstrosities, hybrids, mutations, monstrosities of language, monstrosities of technology, monstrosities of politics. In Latin, monstrum was a religious voice denoting a wonder, a supernatural fact. And from monstrum, we can derive monstrare and demonstrare, meaning to show, to prove, and to demonstrate, verbs that refer us to the universe of experience and knowledge. That's it. It was not long. Okay, oh, sorry, I wanted to show you this while I was reading. In any case, these are some quotes that somehow summarize what I just tried to put in more or less efficient words. I mean, some quotations regarding this idea of the possible as deriving in speculation and about doubt, hesitation, and uncertainty. In any case, I could summarize my work. Well, first of all, I will present about 4 or 5 projects, and it's always difficult for me. I've been active for more than 40 years, and picking up just a few of these bodies of work means that we lack the whole evolution and how we jump from an idea to another one. But of course, because of the time lapse I've been given, I just pick up some examples that I think can be pedagogic in this context. Maybe to summarize, my whole concern is saying that I'm interested in photography of nature to get the nature of photography. And when I say nature and I say photography, I mean the ontological essence of things. And when I say photography, means a device to represent the world. This is to translate the world from objects into a certain language, in this case, visual language. So most of my work has been trying to prove that images are always constructions, that there are not natural images, and that in order to interpret properly, we need always a context. When we lack this context, and when this context is doctored or arranged, then we are deceived. And I will start with, for instance, a project titled Constellations, done very early in 1993, in which I was working in the Astrophysics Observatory in the Canary Islands and doing astrophotographs by night of different constellations. I was an amateur photographer trying to do photographs in that specialization, in order to provide an exhibition that here you see some of the installation shots. In any case, these are some of the photographs I took. I was not a professional, I was not an expert, so I was mainly interested in the values of the image, the composition, the tones, and so on. These are some of the photographs taken at that moment. But little by little, if we follow looking at those pictures, we realize that something weird. Are it actually photographs of night stars? Not at all. What you've seen are the splashed mosquitoes on the windshield of my car. So the way to produce the pictures I projected was very simple. I don't live in Barcelona city center, I live in the countryside. So driving from home to Barcelona, driving on the highway, especially in summertime, all the mosquitoes were splashed on the windshield of my car. And I didn't want to wash the windshield because this was very rich in terms of organic matter. So I got the car in a dark space, in a garage or whatever, and I pressed a film sheet over the glass, and with a flashlight, my assistant was exposing the remains of those bugs and flying insects smash on the lab. So it's somehow, in terms of photographic history, a radiogram or a photogram. This is a photographic print achieved without using a camera. It's a camera-less image. So there's no technology at all. It's a pure track, the light and the object printing their own shadow. The object itself just pressed on the photographic paper. So even in such a case, truth is missing because of this lack of accurate context, or how we can create illusion and speculation around the visitor's interpretation. But now let's jump to a more sophisticated device, another project called Orogenesis, which was done in 1994. Involves the use of very old-fashioned now 3D renderers. In order to explain that project, I need a previous information for you. I was at that moment, 1994, a visiting artist at the Banff Center for the Arts in Canada. The Banff Center for the Arts is a wonderful facility for artists and researchers, and it's placed in the Banff National Park. The Banff National Park was the first one in Canada to protect wild nature. It was established in 1885. And since then, all the environment has been kept and preserved in a pure, virginal way. So some of the images there are just like a postcard or a calendar plate. Arriving from Barcelona with contamination, pollution, I don't know, all these kind of problems that we have in cities with industrial areas and so on, I thought that I was in a kind of artificial space, because nature couldn't be so beautiful, couldn't be so pure. So it was fascinating, because you were shooting in any direction and you were getting a postcard. Beautiful lakes, wild forest, snowy peaks in the mountain ridge. It was the classic standard cliché of what landscape should look like. And I started to think about the somehow artificiality of nature. This was somehow nature, but it was looking strange, odd, unfamiliar to me. I had another idea of nature, unfortunately. And then I found that in this place they were starting to experiment with the first 3D renderers. This means softwares which are intended to produce virtual landscapes. In order to represent the reliefs, we have different systems. For instance, we have this kind of bump cubes for topographic use, I mean maps with reliefs and contour lines. But how we get them in an automatic, let's say, scientific way? Well, we have a very old system, which are maps. Maps usually are color code, and colors imply heights. So the blue means the sea level, 0 meters high. And the green means, in that case, it's a code, it could be different, means 100 meters high, and so on. So what's happening if we scan this map as cartographic data, and the software is assigning a different height to each different color? We are going to translate a flat bidimensional image into a three-dimensional one. So that's the system this kind of softwares function. Originally, they were created for military reasons. We should send, for instance, a commando, so a squad, to Afghanistan, and they should get familiar with the kind of territory and the features of the landscape they are going to find. So we just photograph with a satellite this place, and we implement these images through this kind of software, and the soldiers can experience this kind of virtual perception of how the territory will be. So the idea is very easy. We start from this military purpose, then we pass to scientific, topographic, geographical, and finally to ludic and entertainment for video games and things like that. No? The use of these softwares depend from the first point of the viewer, where the viewer is placed. So which is the point of view? We can be at the east, at the west, at elevation, and so on. So according to this perspective, we will get a landscape or another one. So I start to play with the software designers' rules. For instance, trying to push out of what was supposed to do. So what's happening if I look for a landscape outside of the map? This is happening. So this is happening. We get this empty space. We have this void. This is terra incognita. There's no information about that. So we only have information for the square of the map. Or what's happening if we place the point of view, the imaginary camera, underground? We get that. I mean, the software is getting crazy. And I think that this is somehow the artist's role. Make technology get crazy. Make technology, to let technology emerge its own unconscious. This is the potential of the software, but the software was not intended for that. So let's try to push to other users. Well, another aspect of these softwares is that they are intended to produce the most conventional and kitschy landscape, about some static patterns which usually provide beautiful skies with dramatic clouds and, valleys and rivers and waterfalls and things like that. So how can we deceive the expectations that the software is giving to us? So let's just change what are the expectations. Usually, for instance, I was using a software called Vista Pro and then another one, TerraGen, which at that moment were quite advanced, but now they're like a children's game because they have been overpassed by more sophisticated ones. But all these softwares deal with DEM, which is Digital Elevation Maps. And they are conceived to interpret cartographic and topographic data according a kind of a code way. So what's happening if we subvert the input? For instance, this is a landscape got by this software, TerraGen. But what was the input? Which kind of map? No map. It was another landscape. So I use, for instance, in this case, Caspar David Friedrich, Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog, as a map. I told the software, okay, this is a map, interpret that and give me a landscape. So a landscape was deriving from another landscape. And this new landscape was deriving from another landscape, and so on. So I was using art, or I was using landscape representation as maps in order to fit the computer, to fool the computer, and to push the computer to create an image from unexpected data. And since the computer or data-specific software is only dealing with a limited vocabulary of mountains, rocks, rivers, valleys, plains, and so on, any kind of input will be a kind of bizarre combination of these geographical vocabulary visual terms. And then the project has been just dealing with different artists. For instance, what's that? Well, that is a tapies. And this is the interface. I mean, you set your map, in this case, the tapies painting, and then you establish some coordinates. The green point is the camera position. The red point is the target. And the lines is the angle of your objective. It can be a telelens or it can be a wide angle. And doing like that, you establish, of course, here there's a kind of a correspondence of the original painting and the curve lines or the relief representation. Then the program will allow you to implement the result with different filters or plugins to cover the surface with grass or rocks or water or whatever. So what's that? This is a Turner. What's that? This is a, Curve. What's that? No, sorry, this is a Curve. What's that? This is a Monet. What's that? This is a Bangkok. What's that? This is a Derain. What's that? Kandinsky. What's that? This is a Gagnon. And this is a Riopel. Well, doing this kind of project, of course, I was soon invited by different museums requesting me to reinterpret the landscapes that, you know, the masterpieces of landscape art they had in the exhibition. For instance, the Dali Museum in Florida, in the States. I was asked to work with their collection. For instance, this is a landscape out of the Madonna de Portligat. And then after this project, I did an exhibition in which the original paintings were displayed together with my own works. I did the same with landscape photography. This is a Roger Fenton photograph in the Crimea War in the mid-19th century. And This is the result. This is Gustave Le Gray, French photographer, also from 19th century. And this is the result. This is a Carlton Watkins. This is the result. This is a J, a Weston, a Duchamp and Man Ray, Élevage de poussière, and this is the result. Well, there are a lot of concerns. First of all, I think that it's an illustration of the Plato's cave idea. No? Now, in order to experience nature, we no longer need to go outside and look, but we can go through those shadows, through those mediations, which are images, which are art history. But also another reference in Stanley Kubrick Space Odyssey, in the first chapter, The Dawn of Man, we are confronted with virginal landscapes, landscapes in which no one has still crossed, stepped, lived. So these are just mineral representations of the world. And this gave me the idea that those landscapes were having no memory, landscapes without memory. Usually in art history, the landscape is always connected to a memory. What happened there? In this landscape, maybe there was a battle. In this landscape, maybe there was a former town. In this landscape, it happened, that specific important event. But these are landscapes without memory. Nothing happened in them yet. And I think that this is also providing a kind of interesting story, a kind of interesting perspective. No? More or less at the same time, I did another project titled Googlegrams, which deal in the intersection of two different representation systems. At one hand, a very old one, 2,000 years ago, which is mosaic. Mosaic is a system of representation done with thousands of small tiles in order to structure a more complex visual pattern. Somehow, it's preceding digital images. The structure is the same. Romans or Greek use tessella, and now we use pixels. But more or less, the ontological structure is the same. So I think that there should be a kind of connection between this kind of representing the world and internet and the digital image making. Along art history, this idea of this kind of graphic units has been done by many artists. For instance, here you have Georges Seurat from the Puntillist tradition, or again, Dali with this famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln. But in photography, there have been also different experiences, for instance, Joyce Neimanas or David Hockney. Well, in 1996, a graduate student of MIT called Robert Silvers introduced the photomosaic software. This means that you have a bank of images and you can refashion a specific image model together with the combination, a kind of composite of hundreds or thousands of tiny images from your previous repository. A few years later, another programmer called Frank Mittley implemented this idea with an interesting feature. You no longer required image bank. You no longer required thousands of images to fit your final output. You could just connect your software to the internet, and through the Google search mode, you could just type some word, and according to this search criteria, all the images available in the internet at that specific moment could be captured and compose your final composition. So I thought it was a great device, a great tool to involve the connection to explore the dialectic relationship of text, of words, and images. Because we are in a stage in which still we should deal with images through a verbal language. And this is quite interesting because it introduces a lot of accidents and interesting aspects to take some creative results. For instance, this is the first image in history, the first photograph in history taken by Nicéphore Niepce in France in 1826. Okay. In this case, the search word to produce the mosaic was just photo, but written with PH and F. So this was including different languages, English, Catalan, Spanish, German, French, Italian, and so on. And this is the interface that you deal with, and this is the result, as you've seen before. If we go closer, we realize that the structure of the image is composed by 10,000 different shots, photographs captured from the internet that were in pages in which the word photo was included. And doing that is like including all photographic history in the first pictures of history. Here, if we look carefully, we find all different tendencies, all historical movements, all its portrait, its landscape, its still life, its advertising photography, its industrial photography, its pornographic photography, all the photographic culture is condensed in this specific image, in this specific composition. And somehow, as I said, this is a wonderful tool to realize how these two ways to apprehend the world, text and images, connect, and somehow they are in conflict. Yesterday, Jorge and I were attending the wonderful workshop that was done here at CCCB to present the DALI software. And in this case, it's again a tool which provides images from word instructions. And again, it's a wonderful way to experiment how this is functioning. I mean, what's the system, the conventions, and again, the accidents that this can generate. For instance, I introduce my own name. What's the picture that I get when in DALI I write down Joan Fontcuberta? This is my image. I got that. It's serious. It's wonderful. But then, since for other reasons I'm currently interested in dinosaurs, I get that. I mean, this is the image that one of the image I got when the search was, I read, a wide range of excited dinosaurs, including a Tyrannosaurus rex, and two Klingon spacecraft fleeing in photorealistic space. So it's wonderful. I think that there will be a kind of before and after we are using this kind of tools. Well, going again back to that Googlegram, for instance, this is the famous blue marble. I've been using different photographs which are very iconic for different purposes. And in this case, the search words were heaven, purgatory, and hell. So you can establish connections which are poetic, arbitrary, causal, political, whatever. So it's a way to explore the possibilities of those connections. Or this, another important, recent, iconic photograph of the Abu Ghraib torture affair. And here you have all the search words, which were the persons who were participating in that US Congress research panel. So military, politics, and so on. And again, if we go closer, we have, this kind of perspective. September 11, planes crash snapshots, and the words were God, Yahweh, and Allah. A soldier with a smashed head, Iraqi victim, and the name of all the prime ministers or presidents of countries that participated in the Iraq invasion. Two drowned immigrants in southern Spanish coast, and the search words are all the concerns and worries of Spanish population at the same time: social welfare, health, medical care, pension, unemployment, inflation, housing, and so on. Homeless, and the search words are the 25 richest persons in the world according to Forbes magazine. So William Gates, Warren Buffett, and so on. And then I've been dealing with art history as well. For instance, Leonardo, Last Supper. And the search word are all the chefs with 3 Michelin stars. Or The Origin of the World by Gustave Courbet. And the search words are Big Bang, Black Hole, and Dark Matter. Or more minimalistic, Casimir Malevich, White Square on White, White on White. Or a mosaic of a mosaic. This is a Medusa mosaic, a Roman mosaic, refashioned in a digital mosaic. Well, I just wanted to say that I include sometimes kind of interactive installation in which visitors can introduce their own words, so that the result is a kind of collective artwork. And it was funny because I introduced that project in China several times, and since the Chinese government was censoring Google, I mean, the screen remained blank. So it was a proof of censorship. Holy Innocents, I'll go faster. I've been requested to rush. Holy Innocents, another probably problem we all experience with digital times and email, so is spam and scam. And I'm very interested in those phenomena, and I mean, I collect spam, and I do projects with, for instance, the Nigerian letters. I receive letters from girls from the East. They found my Facebook profile, and they get my friends, and I said, of course, let's get friends. And I go on with them, and I ask them to send pictures, and well, it's very funny. But one day, I sent a very strange one of an American soldier in Iraq, who was presenting himself as Captain Tom Hook, and said, Captain Hook, that sounds familiar. Maybe his friend is Sergeant Peter Pan or something like that. Huh? But this guy was telling me that they found, and they found a lot of money in the Saddam Hussein palace, and of course the US authorities took over, but they kept a little money for them. And they were looking for someone to invest in charity, because they were having some bad concerns about the misuse of this funding. And I said, okay, I mean, but you know, I'm a photographer, I'm familiar, I mean, amateur photographer. I know that photography can be, you know, can deform, can be illusory. Please send me a picture to prove that you have that money. And he sent me this picture. I said, well, that's good, it's convincing. Huh? I think that we can do something with that. But, you know, maybe I've seen a lot of movies, and sometimes there's just a current banknote, but the rest is just wallpaper. So please give me a close-up. And then he sent me this. Okay. That's good, but send me more. Send me them. I said, okay, well, at that moment, I believe you, so we really can establish you know, a commercial relationship. Let me introduce myself. My name is Fontcuberta, and I'm the priest of a historical church in Barcelona called Sagrada Familia, which was started in 1882 by a famous, crazy architect called Antonio Gaudí, and we are still building it, and we need money to finish the tower, and I think that your funding will be perfect. And at this moment, there are some underground construction, and the building is shaking, so I think that we need a lot of, you know, funding to stabilize the thing. But now I've sent you my pictures. Could you please identify yourself? And said, yes, he sent me this photograph. So, okay, nice meeting you. So, and well, to make it fast, we were exchanging a lot of documents and things, and I said, well, I'm right now in a Catholic convention in a small village called Albarracín, and actually everything was done to produce a book. I was invited by a foundation for a residency of literary and artistic work, and for a month I should produce a piece, I should produce a project, which finally as an output should be a book. So I said, okay, that's fine, I will keep a correspondence with that guy and epistolar work, and when I have the 96 messages that I was requiring for the number of pages of the book, it's over. And at the end, I said, I'm very sorry, Captain Hook, but we have a problem. My bishop just found our commercial transaction, and I've been forbidden to deal with you. Now, some Vatican officers will contact, and we will go on with this. But this was, you know, the possibility of, pardon? Well, we did a book in which, you know, I was providing two different gelatin filters in which you could just see one version of the other. No? So truth was according the color of the filter. And I will go very fast now. Trauma is dealing with archives, but the archives in which images get damaged. Images are, because of bad conservation, is you know, vanishing. And to me, this is providing a sense of paradox. Photography is a device to preserve memory. What's happening when photography becomes amnesic? So I'm collecting this kind of situation and working with them. I go very fast. These are from different archives, photo archives, historical photo archives, all over the world. I don't intervene, I don't manipulate, it's just the way I got those negatives or images. And the thing is, I'm also interested in the reason of this degradation. And I've been in touch with different biologists, and these are the microorganisms, the fungi, which eat the gelatin of the photographic support. So these are photophagus, or artphagus. And in confrontation with this kind of phantoms, I would like to finish with another kind of monstrosity. I'm working with another artist called Pilar Rosado, dealing with GAN, Generative Adversarial Networks technology, applied to different archives. For instance, we found an archive of a psychiatrist from Barcelona called Joan, who could be in wonderful dialogue with the exhibition of Francesc Tosquelles that we have upstairs. And this psychiatrist was also an amateur photographer and did thousands of portraits of his patients because he believed that confronting the patient with his or her own self-portrait was a therapeutical system. So those portraits are now available, and according that GAN system, we are producing new portraits, but what I'm interested is not the possibility of finally achieving perfect portraits of non-existing persons, but especially the accidents. This is the possibility of generating this kind of unpredictable things. No? Jorge has been working very deeply with this culture of prediction, and his work, Videntes, is a theoretical corpus of how we are installed in the necessity of anticipating somehow what's going to happen. And this could be a kind of illustration of those concerns, but paying attention, not the final result, but to the process, to the deep learning process, and all the unpredictable results which are in the in-between